All right, guys, welcome back to iCoach Nutrition Radio. Today, I have a very special guest, somebody that I've had the pleasure of working with, coaching one-on-one for the last year or so. And he just graduated iCoach University, and he's going off on his own now into the real world. I'm like a proud father here. But without further ado, Alex, what's going on, my man? How are you?
Hey man, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. How's we'll kick it off. I know like we're in the crazy times of quarantine right there, and you are in we're in Texas and you're in Tennessee there. So how's quarantine life in Tennessee for you?
Quarantine life's been okay. I'm sort of ready for it to be over with. I know we've talked a lot about it. Definitely a lot of adversity, but it sort of been good maybe to change things up and to find some new things that I normally didn't have time for. You're busy driving to work and all the social activities, and so when everything gets shut down, it sort of shows you how much free time you actually have, and sort of pushes you to maybe get involved in a few other things. So that's been one good thing, but I'm definitely ready for things to open back up here.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm definitely ready for it as well, but at the same time, yeah, there's been so many there's been so much awareness that's been built during this time with the transition, and as we've talked about, like I love seeing just like the families and how much more active they are. Like everybody's going on walks and bike rides, and people are from my perspective working with clients one on one. I mean, it's kind of like made it easier in a sense for them, like as soon as we can kind of get over that mindset shift, right? Because now they're eating out less, there's less social stuff. Obviously for you, like the whole gym dynamic kind of sucked, right? Like we were in a gym like doing a legit program, and then we kind of had to make shift with doing body weight stuff. And you've gotten, remind me again, you've kind of gotten like a few different things since you've since the quarantine. Like you've really like, I mean, talk about effort, right? I mean, you really had to put forth quite a bit of effort in order to like stay consistent with your workouts, knowing that you didn't have access to a gym, right?
Yeah, I definitely realized early on that my two 25-pound dumbbells were not going to cut it. I was like, okay, so we're going to have to like get creative and figure this out. So I got the like weight vest because I know we were like prioritizing steps during that. And also the resistance bands. And I had like the stackable kind that, could sort of go up to like 115 pounds, and really just tried to find ways to get creative. I got an old chair so I could, have the like do step ups and things like that. So it was definitely interesting. I definitely missed the gym. I think I've told you every week when we talked was I will never, ever take advantage of the gym after this. Because home workouts just don't hit the same, but you still got to do them.
Yeah, I mean, yet another takeaway there, right? Like how many of us have like taken advantage of the gym? Like there's so many times, and for me, too, it's like I just didn't go to the gym because I just didn't feel like going to the gym, right? And then now we get this awareness built through these last few months where it's like, yeah, well, we'll never take advantage of it again. So that's awesome, man. But I think I want to take things back. I know we're in quarantine right now, so I wanted to kind of kick it off with that. But I want to take things back with you kind of, before we even started working together, and kind of start to share really just your journey of, how you got to where you are today. I want to kind of talk
Hmm.
about like your journey with nutrition and fitness, kind of before we started working together, and then how that journey, kind of went for you over the last year here, as well as as well as like just how your mindset has kind of like changed along the way. As I always say, like people come to me for like nutrition and fitness, and really what they leave with is like the mindset that's developed along the way. And so, we had talked about a little bit here before we had you graduate, and you had said, this whole process, this whole journey has been way more than nutrition and fitness. It's taught me a lot about motivation, self-confidence, dedication. And one of the main goals has been to stop being so hard on myself and setting unrealistic expectations / goals. The consistent and perceived failure of obtaining those caught me in a vicious cycle. So I think that's like super, like such a super powerful, like just paragraph there that we talked about last time, right? But before we dive into that, kind of let's kick it back. Where were you at kind of with like nutrition and fitness? Like what did life look like before we started working together?
Yeah, so I think what started all this, so it's like 6 or 7 years ago. I mean, I was at like 230, not confident, and ended up and not even trying, which is sort of the weird part about it. Was able to drop 60 pounds by myself. I'd like been on an internship, and all I did every day swim 35 minutes, and because I didn't have a kitchen in the hotel, I'd always eat out. So I somehow decided I'm going to eat off like the quote unquote healthy portion. And then I got back to school, and I was just like a different person. But from that, I sort of realized I sort of developed a very unhealthy relationship because I lost all the weight. I was then now scared of food. So I realized, I didn't really lift any weights. I really prioritized, cardio. But I wasn't eating enough. I was afraid to eat, thinking that I'd turn back into that, 230 pound, Alex. So over the past year before we met, I've tried a few programs, and it seems like one of those crash programs, right? Where it's like you hit it really hard for a month or 2 months, and then you sort of like fall off the bandwagon. It's not really sustainable and doesn't really teach you, get that relationship back with food and working out and how they both sort of work together. But then also it doesn't teach you the trust that you have to have in yourself. So then I started more recently, about 3 months before we met, getting into the gym a little bit more with weights, but still the same thing, wasn't really seeing any progress, which is the first thing that I think you helped me identify was that relationship with food, the reverse dieting, how really you're putting minimal inputs, expecting these massive outputs, and it doesn't work like that. Everything sort of feeds together. So I think I realized that I needed something a little more substantial than here's your PDF packet of exactly what you should eat in your strength program that's given to like hundreds and thousands of people. It needs to be a little bit more like focused and something that like there's accountability and ownership, but it's not just about fitness and sort of like what I've realized over the past year. It's about teaching yourself and having the confidence that I can do it. Because I think so many times I've tried like 5 programs and you fall off after 2 months and you sort of give up and throw your hands up. Like that's just not productive.
Yeah. Yeah, man, there's a there's a lot there to unravel. So when you like taking it back to that initial weight loss there, the number one reason why you decided to do that was for mainly just the confidence piece. There wasn't like a health scare or anything like that necessarily. It was just more of like I'm overweight. I'm not confident. I know I need to lose weight, and here I go. Like
Honestly, when I'm trying to think back to it, I don't even think I even thought about the health or the confidence piece. I just realized I was down in a place where I knew no one, and I was in a hotel, so I'm just going to swim 30 minutes a day.
oh, okay.
So there was no like actual like effort, like I'm going to like work out. I think it turned into that, but I think it was more so like just like a more boredom thing. Because what else am I going to do at a hotel?
Yeah, well, hey, way to choose a positive. I mean, there are many other things you could have done that would have been less productive. So good for you for taking that initiative there. So when you started getting into the gym, when you started working out, why do you feel like you were struggling with? Because a goal for you was like you wanted to put on muscle, right? You were struggling with doing that. So like, why do you feel like you were struggling with putting on muscle? Because you were, I mean, at this point, like kind of define, what did the nutrition and fitness look like? And knowing what you know now, why was it that you were struggling with putting muscle
I think the first one would be so maybe a 2-part answer. I mean, I was eating probably like 1,800 calories a day, which is, as we've known, that was not merely enough.
on? Like my 6-year-old little sister.
Yeah, I'm surprised I could like function during the day. And then I think the next part would be, it sort of leads into the confidence. I was very like, I think a lot of, people, myself included, when you first go to a gym, you think it's only for people who like are built or have muscles. And so you get a little timid, and maybe don't hit it as hard or don't stay as long as like, or follow the program that you need to do in there because you're self-conscious of what other people are thinking about you. When in reality, everyone is just in there to better themselves, regardless of the level that they're at, which is something I had not come to terms with yet. So I think it really impacted A, my desire to go to the gym, and then B, my actual like quote unquote performance while I was there.
Got it. That makes sense. So trying to put on muscle while basically eating in a calorie deficit, which we know is like impossible to do. And then just like, I think the gym situation, that's such a good point to hit on, is that like, I mean, I hear that so often, right? And maybe it's for somebody like you who like you were actually trying to like put on muscle, or maybe it's a client that I'm working with who like they're extremely overweight, and so going into the gym thinking that everybody's just looking at them, thinking that everybody's like making fun of them, or like we get in our own head about so many things in life, right? Not just going to the gym, but so many different things. And so I think we have to realize that like when we're in the gym, and this is for anybody out there that is thinking this right now, or this has happened to them before, you have got to realize that even me, guys, I've been consistently strength training since 7th grade. I've done, competing in CrossFit, all these different things, but like even me, even when I'm in the gym, I still think those things too. Like I still have, I still think like, oh, some blah, blah, blah is looking at me, or maybe I'm not doing this right, or what, like I still have all those thoughts, right? But what happens now is that like, as soon as those thoughts come into my head, they get shut down so much faster, right? Whereas before, like, let's rewind it all the way back however many years ago, like that wasn't the case. It would sit there, those thoughts would live in my head, right? They would take up real estate, and it would mess with my head, mess with my mind, and mess with my motivation and consistency and all of these things. And so once we identify that, once we build that awareness and let you know that, hey, like it's okay. Like everybody's feeling these feelings, and at the end of the day, like you just have to show up and put in the work, and like things will start to get more and more comfortable, just as if anything else in life. Like the first time you start a job, the first time you started college, the first time you did this or did that, like everything's scary when we first start doing it.
Yep. Well, and one thing that like helped me was don't think you have to climb the mountain in one day. So don't think the first day you go to the gym that you have to be this like expert and hit every machine that you want and like do like what I started to do is like, I'm just going to hit one thing today. That thing, something that's going to get me out of my comfort zone a little bit. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to realize, hey, I can actually like do this. And no one's looking, or if they are looking, who cares? Because I'm in here like focusing on me. And then over time, the more comfortable you get with it, you just don't even think about it anymore. I can go to the gym now that's like packed and put your headphones in, you put a little motivation music going, and you just sort of like get lost in your workout. So that was like really helpful.
Yeah, I love that, man. Yeah, you get in your own little zone. You gotta kind of like block everything else out and like focus. Like you gotta just, before you even step foot into the gym. I mean, this could be on the side of things we were just talking about, or maybe it's just on the side of like getting distracted from work or whatever, being on your phone. Like when you walk into the gym, you have to like literally just tell yourself like, this next hour is for me. Like, and shut everything, like put your phone on silent mode, whatever you need to do, like shut it all out and get in there, get to work and be done with it, because if not, it drags out to be longer, or you don't get as good a workout, or, whatever happens there. So no, I think that's a good point for sure. So when you like, I guess, decided that you needed to like get a coach, you needed somebody that you actually like wanted to work one-on-one with, rather than just like, following whatever maybe the like bigger programs that are out there. How did we even get like connected? Like if I remember right, I think we just started talking like through Instagram or something. Is that right?
Yeah, I saw you guys because I think I realized I tried something like strength and like workout programs. I was like, I really think I need to focus on the nutrition, because I think the relationship with food is really what because I had like a trainer for a short time locally who kept just saying like, you're not eating enough, you're not eating enough, you're not eating enough. And at some point I was like, okay, maybe I'm not, and maybe that's the issue. Because if you tell me what to work out or get me on a plan, I mean, I can execute it, but it's really hard for me to convince myself that I can eat this much and be okay. So it's like, maybe I need a little bit more help in there. And that's when sort of you popped up and sort of started that dialogue, and had, I think, a coaching call, or that first call, like, 4 days later.
Gotcha. So when we talked about like the whole like reverse dieting, and for those listening right now, I think reverse dieting has gotten to be this like word that people like put on this pedestal to be so fancy. It's not. It's like literally so. It's just slowly eating more calories, right? It's slowly like if Alex came to me and he's eating in a calorie deficit, wanting to put on muscle, right? What we knew is we said, hey, like we slowly have to start working your calorie intake up to what maintenance level calories actually should be for you, right? And whether we get all the way up there the first time or not, like we know that we have to eventually get to maintenance level calories, because sure, there's some days that you go off the route, go out the wazoo there and eat however much, but like the majority of the time, like you're eating at these low calorie numbers. So what was your like? You had the trainer that told you that, hey, you need to eat more, you need to eat more. But when I sat there and kind of broke down reverse dieting for you, and like especially knowing the history there and thinking that maybe you're going to go back to that old body type, like what were some of your like fears and reservations? Like were you just like, all right, I'm gung-ho, let's go, let's do it? Or were you like, was there a little bit of a kind of like trust the process that had to go into it?
Yeah, I think after we had our first conversation, I was maybe a little skeptical, like not of you, but just of like, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna eat more, and we're gonna see how this works out, because you're just not sure, because you've sort of never done that before, and so you don't know. It's very much like the unknown. So it's like, I don't know how it's gonna work, but I know Justin's telling me this is what I need to do, so I'm gonna trust it. But I think you just had those like I had the reservations in the back of my mind a little bit.
Yeah.
Takes a lot of like willpower to be like, I am gonna eat more. So
Yeah. Well, and just like even creating awareness around it, right? Because I mean, like knowing how many calories you were actually consuming. I mean, maybe you tracked at some point with that trainer. Is that the first time that you like tracked on like MyFitnessPal or something?
yeah, and I had done it off and on, like just by myself. So I had like a rough idea of what I was doing. The only reason she ever said anything was because I'd get into my workouts, and like 30 minutes in, I'd like have to stop, because I just didn't have the energy to like do it.
Oh wow. Wow. And you weren't that wasn't happening to you when you were swimming though, right?
No.
Interesting. Do you think that maybe just like with doing like the strength training and have to kind of exert yourself a little bit more, like that's what it was? Or because I mean, you were doing a bunch of cardio before you started working with that trainer with the swimming, right?
Yeah, so I was doing a lot of swimming. I think it's just because that was the real first sort of swipe at strength training I had done, and it was just so different than, because I think you also get a little accustomed to cardio, after a certain point. So when you start lifting, throwing things around and lifting things, it's just a big shock, I think.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. Um, so talk to me a little bit about like the reverse dieting process for you. So like remind me again when we first started, and I can take like Lance here if you don't remember, but the like you came to me, your starting calorie intake like was right around where, and then kind of through the end of the reverse dieting process, like basically how many calories were we able to actually work up, and how much muscle were we able to actually put on there?
Um, so when I first came, I think I was sort of hitting like the 2150, 2200 range. And then at the peak, which I think was like February, I mean, I was up to like 3100. Um, and it was like sort of 3 to 4 months really on the strength program. I was up about 9 pounds of muscle. And then I was down like zero point 0.2 pounds of fat. Um, so I'm currently sitting like 2,800, because we backed off just a hair. But yeah, so we almost basically 1,000 calories we were able to tack on there.
Wow. That's so like I mean, people listening to that right now, like they're like 1,000 calories. Like it's just like mind blowing. I mean, it really is, right? Like I mean, I hear these stories so often that it doesn't really surprise me anymore. But like take myself out of my shoes, like it's like mind blowing. And a lot of people will think like that they can just do that overnight, but like that's not the case at all. I mean, that took to go up almost 1,000 calories. That took how many months?
It was August through basically February. We very slowly progressed up to that point.
Yeah. So I mean, that's what 6, 7, 8 months, something like that, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite some time, and it's quite some discipline and like consistency in order to do that too, right? Because not only are you like eating more, but in order to like slowly reverse your intake up, you have to actually be tracking your food intake during that time, right? And if you're not doing
Yep.
that, then like you have no idea where your numbers are at, and you're not going to be able to successfully reverse diet. So yeah, kudos to you, man, on being able to like successfully, go through a reverse dieting process, because it's not something that's easy. I mean, it's anybody can start eating more just through like crappy food, right? But like actually doing a proper reverse dieting protocol is extremely challenging. Yeah. Okay. So let's dive into the whole kind of conversation around like your relationship with food and improving your relationship
Mm.
with food. When you lost the 60 pounds, what, like from a diet perspective, like you were eating out for all your meals, you said, right? You're eating like the
Yep.
healthier options there at the menu or whatever. But like obviously you started eating less calories, right? Like that's why you lost the weight. But what define like the relationship with food, like before we started working together, and kind of where your relationship with food and your relationship with your body is at now after working together.
Mm. Well, so the relationship with food, I think it was comforting. So I think the reason I gained all the weight is that, when if you're it's a comfort food thing. So if you're stressed or depressed or anything like that, I mean, I think I just sort of gravitated to food, and that's why I gained the weight. So when I lost it, I sort of was always ingrained that like just eat less, move more. That's like the key to like fitness. Um, and so coming to like a nutritionalist and having be like, actually, you need to eat more to get your gains. It's such like it screws with your mind a little bit, I think, because it seems to go against everything that you've sort of been taught. Um, because all I remembered is, well, last time I ate a lot of food, I gained a lot of weight. Um, which is, I think that, not to go down another rabbit hole, but that goes to the whole thing of sometimes you can't just trust the number on a scale. Um, because my number went up, but in reality, it was a good up. Um, so that just sort of, that combined with the food relationship, I think just always prevented me from wanting to eat more when I probably should have. Um, and because of that, I never was super confident in my body. You're of course slim, and then everyone talks to you because they knew what you looked like when you were 230 pounds. They're like, "Oh, you're so slim, you look so great," and then you sort of look in the mirror and be like, "But you're also your hardest critic, which is really hard as well." So that's those like self-sabotaging thoughts in the back of your mind. So if you take that plus the food plus the lack of confidence for the gym, it just creates this very vicious cycle, I feel like, where you just sort of can't snap out of it. I just kept basically not eating enough and just kept doing cardio. So of course you're just going to be super slim and not seeing a lot of progress once you've dropped all that weight.
Yeah. Well, and maybe even a little bit of the headspace is there is like, well, I'd rather be slim than go back to being fat, right? And like, even
Yep.
though you're not like the body comp that you want in terms of like like shirt off, like looking good with abs and muscles and all that, it's like, well, at least this is better than where I came from. And so, yeah, it's an interesting place, because it's almost like, it's almost very easy to get like complacent too in that place too, and complacent out of like fear, just because you don't want to go
Mm-hmm.
back to that. And I always talk about like the integrity with ourselves when it comes to this area of life, and other areas too, but like that integrity bank account. And you're right, man. It's like, I mean, I think about this in my own life. I think about this with all the clients I work with. It's like, if we sit here and keep saying that we are going to do something over and over and over and over, and we don't do it, we don't follow through with it, then like we start to lose integrity with ourselves, right?
Yep.
And slowly but surely we start to like not believe in ourselves. And when we don't believe in ourselves, then that turns into not even wanting to like set goals for ourselves, right? And like it's this spiral effect that happens until you're able to like snap out of it and actually get that first win. Once you get the first win, then you can kind of start stacking wins, and then eventually, yes, you're gonna have setbacks. That's just part of life. But for some people, it's like fail, 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 and they don't ever feel like they can win. And so getting that first win and able to start stacking wins, I mean, that's what transforms people's lives.
Yep.
And, for you, so as young as you are, just for reference here, how old are you, Alex? What are your like metrics? So height, age, weight, just for the
20,
here.
yeah, 26, 6'2". And when I started with Justin, I was 170, like 1.5, and I'm at like 183 right now.
Gotcha. Yeah. So like as young as you are there, I mean, imagine to take another 10 years to heal that relationship with food and with your body. Like imagine like struggling with this stuff for another like 10 years. Like, I mean, eventually you like, I mean, maybe you find your way, but like maybe actually what happens is you just go back to that old place, you know?
Yep.
And that's where I think like, I mean, education is everything, and not just like general education, but like specific to you, right? And finding out like what works best for you. Because if you're trying to figure it out and like navigate through all this stuff on your own, like not saying you can't figure it out, but it's going to take so much longer, and it's probably going to cause you so much more heartache, and you're probably going to lose so much more integrity with yourself because you only have so much motivation and willpower to keep trying. And if you keep
Yep.
trying and failing, eventually you just stop trying.
Well, if you do six, like for me, it's like I did six programs in a row, and like you don't really see change, and nothing really happens. So at some point you're like, well, maybe it's just like I'm not meant to, to gain muscle, or meant to do X, Y, Z. And you're just like, oh, and like you said, you become super complacent. And it's like, well, then everyone keeps telling me I look so good, but I feel like I feel like I don't look good. So it's like, how do you sort of get out of that?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's so common, and and especially, I think like the saying is, it's like the only thing that really matters is how you feel about yourself, or what you think about yourself when you're alone by yourself, and it's like, I mean, here you are, you're getting all this praise from everybody else for losing weight, which, I mean, health wise, even though you didn't have the health scare because you're so young, but if that was 20 years from now, like health wise, you definitely would have had a scare, right? But it's like it's probably when you're, I don't know. I mean, when you were, let's say, for example, like when you did have these summers and you're on the boat or at the pool or whatever, like, because when you lose a bunch of that weight, a lot of the times it's like you look like skinny fat, right?
Yep.
And so was that some of like what you were battling against? Is like, well, maybe I look good with clothes on, but then when I have my clothes off, I'm a little more self-conscious, or.
Oh, 100%. So that, and like, you can even like look at my Instagram. Like I'd never post a like shirtless picture or anything like that, or avoid, social settings when that, going out to lake and stuff. It's sort of, it always set in the back of your mind because you're just not confident in yourself. It's like, yeah, I'm glad I lost all this weight, but I feel like I don't have that much to show for it. I'm glad I'm like smaller, but then it's like, that's not sort of the image that you want all the time. I'm not saying you need to be super ripped, but like at the same point, there's a nice balance in between where you're not skinny fat, but you're not, a bodybuilder.
Right.
And that's what sort of feel like always eluded me.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, it totally makes sense. And I think something that just kind of came to me is like, here it is on this podcast that two males are talking about this. Like, we're talking about body image. We're talking about like having an unhealthy relationship with food, with the body, like the lack of self-confidence. I mean, like, this happens, I mean, a lot. Like, this is, like a lot of the times you hear this with like females, but like this happens just as much as with males. The problem is like most males just aren't open to talk about it. Like, they won't be vulnerable and transparent like this. So, first off, thank you for being transparent and like being willing to like actually share this story, because I mean, as you know, there's plenty of other guys out there that are 25 years old that they're struggling with very similar things, and they don't really have any platform or anybody to talk to about it. And I think that this is something that a lot of people struggle with, and maybe they just don't see, they just can't find a community that they can kind of like pour themselves into. Because I mean, if you were like, let's say for example, like before we met, like if you were to like pour yourself into a community, right, or find a community there of like-minded individuals that like you're sitting here hearing these things time after time after time again, right? And you're seeing other people that were struggling with similar things and saw them transform. Like, it's just going to give you even more confidence to like trust the process and to buy into it, you know? But I think that's really hard to find. Like, obviously it took you a while to find that, you know, even after you finally started like even trying and like taking this serious and like wanting to make this a priority in your life, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think what it helps is it gives you the confidence, even if you maybe haven't experienced it yet yourself. You can see the other stories, which it shows you, and it's not just like an advertisement, or it's just not just someone you don't know that they're trying to convince you to buy a product. Oh yeah, it's worked for all these people. It's like you're sort of in it together, and you don't just see the good, you also see the struggles. And that's like one thing I've liked about like, the Facebook group and the weekly or post call updates that we all get to share with each other. It's not just like the good news. It's here's the good news, but also here's like what I struggled with and how I'm going to work on that. And also asking each other for tips, because in reality, I think a lot of us struggle with the same thing. It may be a little bit different, based on everyone's sort of life that's going on, but at the root cause of it all, it's all very similar.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I mean, everybody has their own like unique life, right? But like so many of these like big rocks, as I reference them, are consistent. That's why I always say it's like, this stuff isn't sexy. We've heard it a million times, but for whatever reason, like we don't make it a priority. We don't be consistent with it. And, it's sleep,
Yep.
nutrition, exercise, hydration, stress management, like those 5 things across the, I mean, it's been 11 years now and literally thousands of people. Like if I had to pick like 5 big rocks to focus on for everybody across the board, it would be like, that would be it. Maybe it evolves, as we move on here in time, but at least at this point, that's what I would say.
I
I love it,
completely
man.
agree.
So what, like, when you're, before reaching out, because was I the first, besides the personal trainer, was I the first coach that you actually worked like one-on-one with, and other things, like, because the other programs you did wasn't like a one-on-one coaching relationship, right?
Right. Yeah. So besides having like my local trainer, you were the first like one-on-one, and to me, it wasn't even just a trainer. The biggest piece of it was like the accountability and like the support, because, and also navigating, unknowns. It's really easy when you have a very smooth week of like, yep, going to meal prep, going to work out, going to do X, Y, Z. But then it's like, well, I'm going on a trip, or I have this come up, or I'm busy. How can I still accomplish my goals? Or, have a little 80-20 rule, where you're not just following these set rules, to get it done. So that was sort of the first time I sort of had that type of like help.
Yeah. No, I love that, man. I mean, I say it all the time. It's like, the information's out there everywhere, right? I mean, it's 2020. Like anybody can go and educate themselves on nutrition. There's plenty of phenomenal resources that are out there. But like what connects the knowing to the doing is accountability. And every single human being needs accountability. Like we're all naturally pretty bad at holding our own self accountable. And even if we are pretty good at self accountability, when we get held to a higher standard, right, then we're just even more productive and we're even more consistent and we get even better results. So I mean, I'm a big fan of that, and I'll always say, I mean, of course, like there's education and all of that goes into it too, but like the accountability is that's the number one thing that you're investing in. So yeah, I love that, man. What would you say to somebody that, and I don't know if you had any of these reserves at all. I mean, I know we kind of did a discovery call to kick things off there, but like, there's a lot of coaches and a lot of programs and a lot of nutrition, fitness, supplements, like all this stuff that's out there. Like, what would be your advice? Like, if you were talking to yourself before we started working together, what would the advice be to somebody that's like, hey, I'm in a similar position. I'm looking to go work one-on-one with a coach. Like, what would you be looking for in a coach, or what would you be like listening for in that discovery call or in that initial consult before investing in yourself and signing up for a program?
I think for me, it would be, make sure the coach that you're talking to is realistic. And it's not like, well, you're going to get your goals in 30 days, because as we all probably know, like that, you can't accomplish that. And the one thing that I will remember from our call was like off the bat, you're like, well, we're going to get you up to, you're going to be eating above 3,000 calories and you're going to, probably still be hungry and you're going to be crushing your workouts. He's like, but you were not like, that's going to not be tomorrow. It's going to be in time and we're going to sort of build the tools. So that sort of helps you prepare and sort of break that cycle. Cause I think we struggle a lot with like the I want it now culture, where you think, because we're advertised everything that if you do these 3 steps in 30 days, you can, lose 15 pounds or gain 10 pounds of muscle, which maybe you can do that, but it's not sustainable. So I think the first thing is make sure they're being realistic with you about it's a process and to trust the process. And also that it's not just focused on, I think, fitness and nutrition. There's so much other stuff that I think we talked about in terms of like managing stress and adversity and self-sabotage, and that all together leads into more confidence. And then taking that confidence to your nutrition and your workouts is really, I think, the key to everything that sort of ties it together.
Yeah. Oh, I love that, man. I think that's super powerful. Hey, going back to a quick point that you made earlier with like the navigating life, right? Now, whether that's vacations or, the weekend at the lake or crazy stressful times with work or COVID or whatever it may be. Like, I think that piece right there, I mean, again, when it comes to one-on-one, like that's something that you literally can't get unless you do one-on-one coaching. Right. And sometimes those specifics are like what matter most, right? Because what happens for so many people is they're either all in or they're all out. Right. And when you go to a situation there where you feel like you can't be perfect, then a lot of the times we're just like, F it. And we go off the complete deep end and there goes the whole weekend or whatever. Right. So like, talk to me a little bit about like your really just like the planning aspect of planning ahead to set yourself up for success when you have, a weekend or a vacation or a boys trip or whatever it may be there.
Yep. So the thing that always got me in trouble, during the week, it's really easy. You meal prep on Sunday, you have all your meals ready, you can put it in MyFitnessPal the night before or whatever. It's all really easy. And that's what you lose, I think, when you start to be super social or you get busy or you're traveling, is that you start calling a lot of audibles in terms of like, where am I going to eat? I don't know. I pick the first place that I see. But then you get to the menu, they don't really have anything you need. You're like, well, I'm traveling. And then you sort of justify, I think, maybe not the best decision. So learning how to plan ahead, it sort of gives you something to like latch onto, where yeah, you can still have fun and, be social, enjoy your drinks or eating out. But at the same point, if you plan ahead, you can maybe make the best choice for yourself. So it's like if I had a weekend that we help plan where it's like, here's the 3 places I know we're going to eat. Let's look at the menu ahead of time and know what we're going to get. That's going to get us in the ballpark of maybe what I should. And that sort of we know how to structure the rest of the day from that. So taking out the question marks really helps, I think, to, at least for me, I had something to latch onto where I didn't just like say, forget it, I'm off the bandwagon this weekend, I'll make up for it on Monday. No, you can still enjoy yourself and still make the choices that you need. So.
Yeah, well, I think you hit it right there on the head, right? You can, like, in order to make this a lifestyle, like it's got to be sustainable, right? Like you have to learn how to navigate through these situations. You have to learn how to navigate through weddings and vacations and all these different social outings there. And I think for you, like maybe it was even like, a lot of our conversations were like, hey man, like I love margaritas and tequila shots and like all this stuff too, like I don't like completely restrict myself of all this. Like here's what a weekend looks like for me, or like, and so like, I think for you, it's like you almost just allowed yourself to have like more balance in those social settings, which therefore allowed you to to have like a better mindset and a more consistent, like sustainable approach towards, living this like active, healthy lifestyle forever, rather than feeling like, like what you see maybe on social media or with some of these people, like these influencers or whatever, like it's like, they make it out to be like they just have their meal prep containers with them 24/7 weighing everything and they never have ice cream. Like that's just BS. Like they all do.
Yep.
Everybody in the, like, that's why like the fitness field is like nutrition, fitness, supplement industry is just such a, it's so great for so many, but it's also like there's just so much like BS, and you got to understand that if it sounds too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true, you know. And if it sounds like completely unrealistic, like it's probably completely unrealistic. And the highlight reel that we see on the Instagram accounts definitely are not telling the behind the scenes of what's actually going on in these people's lives, you know, until they're starting to share more, which I would say I think we are starting to see a little bit more of that, like more transparency, more vulnerability. But there's still a lot of fluff out there for sure.
Well, I was gonna say balance and awareness, I think, are the other two components that I like struggled with, and I think that a little bit comes back with the confidence. So it's funny how it like all ties in together, because I mean we talked a lot of times, because before this, you know, I'd have a weekend where, you know, had a lot of drinks, you know, went out, chips and queso, all this stuff, and then you'd like wake up the next day and you'd like self-sabotage yourself for everything you did yesterday, and it like sticks in your head, and you're like, well, you know, I'm off the bandwagon now, but not really. I mean, we focus a lot on like, granted, if you do it every weekend in a row or like multiple times a week, yeah, it's probably not the best thing you need to do. But one day out of the month is not going to kill your progress, and it's all about the recovery, and you need to allow yourself to enjoy it too. Because waking up the next day and just basically self-sabotaging yourself and being really hard on yourself doesn't do any good. And that's where that confidence in the process and yourself comes into play to allow you. Yeah, I maybe ate a little more yesterday, but I also had a great time with my friends. I enjoyed myself. You know, I have memories from that. Today I'm going to go hit the gym and get, you know, eat what I need to eat and hit my training program. So awareness of that and the balance was like one of the biggest takeaways I got from it.
Yeah, man. I mean, and I think like highlighting everything you just said there is, I mean, that's the biggest thing that people build through this process and through this journey is awareness, right? Awareness in every situation, awareness around the education of nutrition, of like what's fact and what's fiction, awareness around, you know, like social situations like that, and looking at like what was important, like what was that social event all, you know, actually about, which was like like human connection, building relationships, having fun, enjoying life with friends and family, you know, that type of thing. And again, it's just like the more awareness that we can have, like awareness precedes change, and whether that's physical changes or mental changes, like we have to build awareness, because until we are able to build that awareness, we don't have that 10,000 foot view of what's going on in our life. And I feel like that's kind of like my biggest job, if you will, is to help people to build awareness and to say, hey, like, and you know, we do that with the habit tracker. I think it does a really good job of helping us build awareness, but it's like, we have to like take you out of your body in a sense, and like allow you to come up here with me and like see the 10,000 foot view of your life and everything that's going on, so that you have perspective, you have awareness, and you can focus on the things that actually need to be focused on, rather than worrying about all the other things that you probably don't even have control over. You know?
Yep. Well, and you can't fix what you don't know is broken. And that, I think that's like the biggest part of it is, you know, you ask like, how'd your week go? I'm like, oh, it's awesome. You know, I ate, you know, I was hitting my goals and my targets. And then we like pull up the habit tracker, and it's like, well, you put this perception, I think, in your mind a little bit sometimes of what you're doing, but in reality, it maybe tells a little bit of a different story. It's like, well, you're under eating, so we need to like work on that. But you don't be upset that you missed a workout yesterday, because you still worked out 5 days out of the week. So it's just like, it's a nice little reality check to get you to focus on what you need to.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's why I love kicking it off. You know, it's like, what was your biggest struggle? You know, and what was your biggest win? And like, how can we find, you know, how can we highlight the wins, right? And I mean, because wins are important. Like wins are motivating. Wins are things that like, you know, they drive us to want to put in the work and to be consistent, right? But you know, there's always struggles. Like there's struggles in, you know, everybody's life, and so just being able to like say, hey, how can we improve, you know, from week to week, every 2 weeks, every month, and eventually get you to a place where, you know, like you said, you feel confident in yourself. You feel like you have the education and the tools to be successful on your own. And really it's a skill set, as I've talked about, like with finances, like it's a skill set. You came to me and you wanted to lose 100 or, get out of $100,000 in debt or lose 100 pounds, like very, very, very similar processes there, in terms of like consistency and creating a game plan and the strategy and being held accountable and following, so it's like, there's so many kind of parallels there in terms of a skill set. So Alex, I definitely want to replace or respect your time here. It's God, these podcasts like fly by. I could like probably go on for even longer, but I want to respect your time, man. So last question I have for you here is, if you like, if there was somebody that's kind of listening to this podcast right now, and maybe they are on the fence about working with a coach or joining a program, maybe they're seeing meal plans and templates and group coaching, one-on-one coaching, like all these different things out there. And let's say, for example, maybe they were like you and they had actually tried, 7 programs or whatever leading up into this point. And maybe they were starting to think to themselves, well, I just can't gain muscle, or I just can't lose weight, or insert whatever the goal is. What would you say to them?
I think the thing for me that hits home is don't be that hard on yourself, because you can do it. And you have all the tools in the tool belt. Now you just sort of need what I like told myself, you just need the like instruction manual of like how to put it all together, which is like where I think the coach and the mentorship comes from. Is you didn't give me anything that I didn't already have, but you helped me put it all together. And how do all these parts, play, piece with one another, and also be able to enable me to be able to use it after we stop working together, which is the biggest part of it as well. Because no coaching or training is a good thing if once you stop that you lose it all. So find something that you can learn and you can teach, because you can do it. You have to trust the process.
Yeah, man. I love that. And even if you've, trust is, it's sometimes hard to come by, especially if it's been lost, right? Think about a relationship, right? And so I totally understand those of you that are out there that have felt like you've tried everything under the sun and maybe feel like nothing will work for you. My challenge for you would just be to, maybe have a conversation with somebody. Every single coach that's out there these days, I guarantee you, if you message them on Instagram or send an email in and ask a question, like I guarantee you they would be more than happy to have a conversation with you. And who knows, like maybe hopping on like a discovery call with somebody, which is free with like almost every coach that's out there, like maybe that right there will actually kind of start the process and make some light bulbs go off for you there, and maybe challenging you to think a little bit different. And who knows, like maybe you might be able to identify, like in Alex's case here, like it didn't matter what strength training program he did, who he worked with, like any of these things, if he was eating in a calorie deficit trying to put on muscle, like it just wasn't going to happen. Any diet under the sun, any strength training program under the sun, it's just not going to happen, So that principle right there, like, was imperative to learn in order to be successful long term. So yeah, I would just, again, it's like I totally understand the people out there that are in that headspace, and that's why I do these podcasts right here with clients that have graduated the program, because it's like I want you to be able to get inspired by them and realize that every single person that's found success, they struggled for a long time before that actually happened. And they're going to struggle, again in life at some point too. It's not going to just be, roses and rainbows here, here on out. So I love it, dude. Well, Alex, man, again, thank you so much, dude, for taking the time today and doing this. Dude, congratulations on officially graduating iCoach University. Super pumped for you there. He actually has his iCoach shirt on, guys, but I can't see it because he's got a little lower. Oh, there you go. Yeah. But dude, any final thoughts, any final words that you have for the listeners here, man?
I think the only thing, I'm just going to tag off what you said. I mean, the amount of times that I thought that I was struggling even throughout the program, and you provided that reality check, and the awareness has been the key. And I remember the one call vividly where, I went and had that like in body, and I recorded all my weights down from like the past 3 months, and I actually showed the increases in the strength and the changes in the body comp, and that was the moment I think that I realized like I can do this and it's working. So just know it's a process, and you're gonna have ups, you're gonna have downs, but trust yourself and trust the community you find, and it's definitely possible. So don't let it elude you.
I love that, man. I love that. I think one last point here, just to highlight on that, is like the data piece, right? Like the data is everything. Like for us, it was like you got the body fat percentage testing, you had body comp pics, we had weigh-ins, we had all our habits we were tracking, we had my fitness. There's so much data, right? And so with all that data, right, a lot of the times the data trumps those BS stories that we're telling ourselves in our head, because it's like, look, I don't care what you say, like this proves that this is what happened, right?
Yep.
And I think that's another huge missing link for so many people, is they're not tracking anything, like there's no food picture log, there's no MyFitnessPal, there's no habit tracker. There's no type of tracking whatsoever. And if you don't track it, you're probably ain't going to be able to change it. Right. So
Yep. Exactly.
I love it, man. Well, dude, I'm so bummed that you got kind of cut off in terms of the strength training with quarantine here. But dude, I guarantee you, and I can't wait to see this, but as soon as you get back into the gym, I mean, seeing what happened just in those few months of like that consistent strength training program, and then being able to see like, once we get back in there and you're consistent again in like 3, 6 months, 12 months, like, I mean, dude, you're going to send me a body comp pic and you're going to be like, what's up? I'm gonna be like, dude, like shit, freaking jack. So I'm excited for that, man, because I mean, the training age for you in terms of strength training, like I said, is like you're getting these rookie gains, right? And then it got cut off with quarantine, and then now it's like as soon as you're able to get back into that and have, even in those first 3 months, but then a year later, like it's gonna be exciting. So I'm excited to see that, and really just to know that you know everything that you need to know going forward, right? It's just, you have obviously one limitation here with COVID, but as soon as you find a gym, even if it's 100 miles away, you're probably going to go drive to it because you're so ready to get back in.
100%.
I love it. I love it. Well, dude, Alex, thanks again, man, for taking the time today. And yeah, man, until next time.
Appreciate it, man.